So one thing I love about your approach to what you do is this is the idea of inclusion. A lot of people
Yeah.
talk about it, but yours is like incorporated into the work you do all the
Yes.
time. I thought about the 24-hour piece. The mic was open for anybody. We had a microphone there specifically so anybody could
Yeah.
ever walk up and say whatever they
Yeah.
wanted to, and some people did. And when you did a performance with turn music, it
Yeah.
almost felt like a dry run for the symphonic piece because you set a microphone and you
That's right.
asked people to come up,
That's
and
right.
people did. Like I
Yep.
think people came up one
Oh.
after the other after the other. There must have been
The-
15, 20 people that came up and gave
yeah.
30-second to 1 minute declarations that were
Yes. It was
ultimately
beautiful.
hilarious and
It was,
heartbreaking and beautiful.
yeah.
And then that was obviously the plan for the big piece too, right?
That's
I
right.
just wonder was there a moment that you realized that had to be part of your work, or has it just always been that way? Because a lot of artists want to reflect just their own thing, which is fine, right? That's the artist's
Yeah.
expression. It's the self
Yes.
expressed to people. But you seem to always want to include other people's voices in what you're doing. And I'm just curious if that's a thought through thing, if there was a lightning bolt, or just
Ooh.
something you just naturally do.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I always remember my mother saying things like, "We all suffer. We don't always survive. Not all of us will survive." I remember her saying, "Danny, if somebody gives you a spotlight, you better share that spotlight with someone else." You
Wow.
know, and I
That's a
remember,
profound thing to say for
yeah,
someone.
yeah, and
Not grab it, make it your own, but share it.
no,
That's
no, always that
beautiful.
way. And these are kind of Haitian. That's a Haitian code of ethics, I'm sure. You will find that in Haiti, if you enter someone's home, this is true in a lot of cultures. You enter someone's home, the expectation is I will give you something to eat and drink, and I will start the conversation. Right? Anything I have in this moment is ours. So yes, you can have an audience come in and sit down and listen, but I thought, wow, how much more interesting to me to, yes, let's set up a microphone, scaling trust, and I trust you enough, anyone, to come up and say whatever you want to say. And of course, you and I know that sometimes, for the best of reasons, some in power might say, well, we have to manage that.
Sure.
They might say the wrong thing. And of course, the question is, well, what's the wrong thing? Give me an
What are you
example.
afraid of?
What are you
The
afraid
fear,
of?
the fear-based response, right? Why are you
Scaling
afraid
trust.
that they would?
That's right. And I think somewhere, again, let's be specific. Let's go back to specificity. This is important. I think we're going to have to trust one another. That's where we are. I think that our ideas, our wants, and our needs are only going to be met by the amount of trust we're going to have. Do organizations truly trust artists to lead them? Right? Does my struggle and sacrifice of my black body give me experiences that are now important and relevant and necessary, right? And are you willing to activate the things that I have suffered through? And by me, I mean those who haven't always had a voice. I think it starts with imagination, and by that I mean ideas. I think that now's the time. There are not enough ideas. There will never be enough ideas. So,
Yeah, true.
the exchange of ideas, writing it down, talking about it, even what we're doing right now, which sometimes I go into with a little bit of skepticism because I'm doing this a lot. I'm talking with people a lot in this kind of format. But it's important. It's really important, Steve. So I thank you for inviting me in. So I think we start with imagination. I think imagination then has to lead to action.
Yeah.
I think it has to immediately lead to action because I think that's also where we are. I can't remember the name. I think it was a boot camp that happened the other day. I can't remember the name of the organization, CI. This is going to make sense when you Google search it, but there was a wonderful convening of a lot of artists and organizations, and it's online now. I think it's boot camp is what it was referred to. It's about 4.5 hours long. And one of the gentlemen early on, he talked about that organizations might have to really think of themselves as extraordinary institutions, that they should aspire to be extraordinary institutions, places where not only new ideas and innovation happens, but a new trust, a new public trust. And I think that's the third thing, because I think that our imaginations have to lead to very specific actions that can be participatory and reciprocal, that I think, and we were talking about this before in terms of town hall cadenzas, that can really speak to a public trust, because we are dealing with public health now for the foreseeable future, one way or another. Even with a vaccine, I think that by the time we get to the vaccine, we will have to have established what is the scalability of our exchange of trust. Do I bring my son and my mother into your space, and will you take care of me? Because if you don't, I might die. Right? Yeah. And
it's not like I might have a bad time.
I think right now in our field, we are in some ways paralyzed by what do we do next? You know, what are our responsibilities now? How do we make money? How do we make money, but think about support? How do we build an audience? Where does it go? Where is it now? Where will it be? What does hybridity really mean now, right? And how do we foster collaboration but consider competition, right? What loads become loaded, and what words offer safe harbor? What words are now strangely comforting, you know? And even this, you know, how do we think about all sorts of frames and the canvas? So I'm excited by that. That sounds very aspirational and a little annoying, I know.
Well, yeah, as with every conversation I have with you, it makes me think about things I hadn't thought before, and about how we take the Flynn, a very established place that's been around for 90 years, and really readapt it to this kind of moment where suddenly we're all aware of the space around us in a way we weren't before. Yeah. Right? 2 months ago, it didn't matter if you were shoulder to shoulder somewhere.
Oh, I loved it.
Right? Yeah.
And, you know, I live in 3 places. New York City, since 1997. I'm in
Hell of a town.
Yeah. Say again?
Hell of a town.
Yeah, especially now. You know, my mind goes to 9/11 when I was there sharing a stoop with my landlady, Mrs. Logan, and one of the blackout. I can't remember which year. Oh, yeah. Again, sharing a stoop with Mrs. Logan and playing violin for her, and suddenly having people, you know, surround us. And there were others. There was a harpist and a trumpet player, and all. You know, it was in Harlem, 119th Street. And suddenly it just became this kind of concert, and mattresses came out. It was hot. And food, great food. Miss Logan went inside and made chicken, you know, really great chicken, and just came outside, and we were just, you know, you were meeting people. That's a New York thing. You were meeting people you had only ever seen. You didn't know their name, didn't know the sound of their voice. And I was listening to you speak just now, and I was moved by the fact that, and it made my mind go to bingo. And you know, in Norwood, just outside of Boston, where I am, I have this townhouse here. I don't know. There's hundreds of people here. I think there are 400 apartments, and the proprietors here organized online bingo just the other night. And you know, I've played bingo with my mom, but it was so great. I kind of saw people that I recognized, and you know me, I got so into it. I didn't even know you could do bingo this way, and you can make a T, and they were doing a W, and then there's this one kind of bingo where you have to cover up every single number, and this one is because you get close, you know, and there's bingo is an operetta waiting to happen. I'm telling you, the severity of each number. I mean, it was so engaging, and seeing people's reactions, and then bingo, and you feel joy, but you also feel a sense of loss because you were just a few numbers away. But what was happening is we were rallying around numbers in a box, on a square, on a page, but we were sharing in it in real time. So I think to myself, wow, whatever you're going to watch tonight, you know, I'm almost tempted to say, hey, Steve, let's get together, have a drink, share that screen. Share, not just to watch it, right? But, you know, and that would be interesting to me. See, that would be interesting to me, that we're not just streaming hell by our frames and our homes, but that, you know what, let's all get together, the person with the best bandwidth, where we'll share their screen, and now we can share and comment and react and respond.
Yeah, I saw you had your violin there. Do you want to like take us out with some music? Do you by any chance have a theme from the piece that you were going to play, the premiere that you could?
Oh,
Or just
yeah, I know.
anything
You know
you
what?
got.
I just want to keep giving. I will do that, but let me, because I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. But because I have been up in the middle of the night trying to understand, myself and where we are, I did want to read, if that's okay.
Oh, please! Oh my gosh! Yeah, I don't mean to rush you out
Yeah.
the door.
No. I just wanted to read something that I wrote the other night, 4 o'clock in the morning when my body is ready to go to Logan Airport or JFK and get on a plane to Tempe, Arizona. And then I'll just play a little bit.
What you gonna read? What's it called?
It's called Sticks, Stones, Wood, and Flowers.
Okay.
It says here I wrote it yesterday at 2:04 a.m. Imagine a president commissioning a poet. Imagine the poem honoring first responders. Imagine all of them in a rose garden, surrounded by musicians and dancers and actors, all commissioned to surround them with their artistry and love. Imagine the announcement of a new artist-led task force to reimagine our infrastructure and renew our energy and dreams and hope. Imagine a visionary call to arms and a focus on a vaccine and international Zoom rooms for the pursuit of equity in our education, our wellness, and our pursuit of happiness for one and for all. Imagine a new national anthem for the forgotten and a needed national apology for the Native American. What if we wrote a declaration of defiance and declared and demanded that people of color and Black Lives Matters and LGBTQIAAP+, and humans without homes, and the less than sheltered, and people with disabilities, and people without food, and children without parents will be given all that they need at any cost without delay? What if our borders were destinations for healthcare and food and water and clothing and gathering and dancing and dreaming and playing and making and doing and seeing and peace? What if politicians can only ever serve 4 years and only ever make a living wage? And what if a living wage was determined by the city you most wanted to live and dream in? And imagine our President of the United States reading this poem at an artful podium made of sticks and stones and wood and flowers, wearing an open heart on a rolled up sleeve, ready to work and die for all of us with a homemade mask on his face. Imagine what the people might say and then do. Imagine.
Beautiful.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you for indulging in that.
I just lay there and get upset. I gotta do better with my waking up at 3:30 in the morning.
We all do. We all do. Well, I'll never ask you to do something I won't do myself. I like to say that all the time. As you know, I don't use the word student or teacher. I like to use the word contributors. Steve, we're all contributors to a classroom and a world and a Zoom room of ideas. Yeah. And I really thank you. Thank you for this conversation. I thank you for you, man. I thank you for you. And I thank you so much for leading the Flynn Center. Is that right?
Yep. We're calling it just the Flynn now. We're going to Flynn.
Leading the Flynn through difficult times, through necessary times, through urgent and frightening times, but for leading. And I know on behalf of a lot of artists in our industry, thank you so much for that leadership and for being a reservoir of ideas and courage. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's touching.
We need you. So this is your musical portrait.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's always such a pleasure, man.
Thank you, man.